Welcome to the expansion draft edition of STL City Showdown. So I'm joined here with Steve. I'm AJ, of course, and we're going to talk about this expansion draft. Not only just kind of talk about it, because Steve is going to impart his teachery wisdom, and he's going to tell us about like some of the basic rules, and then we're going to give our list and see what you guys think. See if you agree with me or if you disagree with Steve. Or both.
Well, you won't, but if you feel like you need to, I guess.
I guess. So, right. Steve, what is this about the expansion draft? Obviously, St. Louis went through this. Now, most people weren't really paying attention to the expansion draft because it happened way before the first season.
Right.
So this is the first one that most of us fans are kind of going through. What can you tell us about it?
All right, so real quick, so this is going to be for our newest team in the MLS. I bought one of their scarves for $10, and this is the blender. So this is San Diego FC. So they are going to have an expansion draft, and every new team, they get to do an expansion draft before the actual super draft later this month, which is December 20th, by the way. So what they're going to get to do is they're going to get to pick out of all the teams in the league, all 29 current teams. They all have to release some players that they would be okay with, I guess, departing with. And I've got some rules here. So this is going to happen on Wednesday, the 11th, 7 p.m. Pacific time, which I think it's 9 p.m. our time. So it's kind of late for us, but it's actually such a cool deal for San Diego that it's going to be live streamed through the MLS, plus one of their local news stations is actually going to air it live, which is kind of cool for that city. So anyway, so it's going to be 5 rounds. So they get to pick up the 5 players from the entire league. And then the biggest rule is there. So they can pick up the 5 players from this, and every team can only have 1 player taken. So if, say, they were to take a St. Louis SC player, they couldn't take from them again. San Diego is going to get 3 minutes for each selection, so really it's going to take about 15 minutes start to finish, I imagine, once it goes. There's going to be no trades allowed during that time. And if a team gets a player taken from them, that team gets $50,000 of GAM from San Diego. So it's not like it's just like a free-for-all, so they actually do get a little bit of cash there. Every team is going to have to release a list, and the MLS is going to release this tomorrow, and they get to have 12 players from their entire roster that are protected. So you can take these. But imagine, I think we have some like 38 players on our roster right now. We can only protect 12 of them. So that kind of goes back to our tier list that we did with Dirk and Prop a couple last week, where what are those best players? Are you going to put any of those D-list players on your protected list? Probably not. So kind of goes back to where you rank your own players. So if the contract expires at the end of this year, it's still going to be part of the new club's roster, which is kind of cool. This is a discussion that we had before. Any homegrown player and 25 years and under are automatically protected, and the team doesn't have to use one of their roster slots. So like Durkin is currently 22 years old, and he's technically a homegrown. Of course, we're automatically going to protect him, and we don't have to use a slot for him. So any of those players that they're automatically protected. So you may not see them on our list tonight because they don't have to be, because they're not on cities. All right. Let's see. Oh, designated players are not automatically protected. So if a GM like did a whoopsie and didn't put one of their protected players or their DPs on a protected list, they get snatched up for only $50,000. So that's pretty good. Do we want to discuss real quick cities expansion draft players so we can kind of remember some of those names?
If you want to hit it. Yeah, if you want to hit it real quick, let's hear it.
So let's see if you remember any of your trivia. Do you remember any of the players that City chose in their expansion draft?
Oh man, you're gonna kill me on this one. I know Indy wasn't he? Oh
yes.
Parker definitely was. Right? Nope.
Not technically. We'll get to that in a second. All right, so the players that City picked were from Orlando, Nico, Gioacchini.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
from
man,
Inter Miami, Vasilev. A little guy that you may remember from New England named John Bell, current MLS Cup. No, that's John Nelson. Oh, actually, FC Cincinnati, John Nelson, Cup champion John Nelson. And
Yeah, that turned out well for us.
Yep, New York Red Bulls, Jake LaCava. Now, here's the thing with that. So we picked those 5 players. We flipped them for 2 trades. All right. We traded for Houston captain and center back player, a guy named Tim Parker. And then we also paid $500,000 in GAM over 2 seasons for him. But Houston also agreed to pay half of his salary. So it was kind of like a give and take there. And we also traded that LaCava fella to Inter Miami for $150,000 in GAM from last season. So think of that, all those moves we made last season. That player, that LaCava guy, was actually beneficial for us in some of that money we had last year. And he had nothing to do with Inter Miami. So it worked out well for us. So that's just another example of how Lutz is doing an amazing job where he was able to flip a lot of these players. So that's a little bit of the rules and a little bit of the history that City has had with the expansion draft itself. So I guess we can go on to what we think.
Yeah. And for anybody who's listening, we're recording this 9 p.m. on December 9th. So this is Monday night. So they have not released any list yet. So it's going to be really interesting to see what City actually releases versus what we release. Now, It's different from our last episode, because last episode we talked about the most valuable players and stuff like that. But there's actually more to it. There's more strategy that City is going to be thinking about. Some of that might be, what is San Diego actually looking for? Like, what is most valuable to them? It might not be necessarily our best, like, top 12 players.
Right.
That makes sense. There's also the consideration, too, of how our roster's structured. If we feel like we're really packed with center backs, for instance, then maybe losing one is not as big a deal as, say, like, goalkeeper. I mean, could you imagine losing Berkey? Of course not, right? Yeah, which obviously he's definitely on our list. So there is going to be a little bit of variations here, and there's going to be some strategies that maybe we're not considering, but we're kind of looking at this as, like, if you said, hey, I want you to decide right now who's your top 12 people, or not top 12 people, but 12 people you put on the list. That's what we're kind of looking at. With that all being said, let's go ahead and let's go through Steve's list. For those that are listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, which, subscribe if you like any of these episodes, we're going to start with this first one. Who's going to be everybody's top one, probably? At least everybody in the fan base, everybody's going to say Berkey, of course.
Right.
And I think the other 2 players that most people are going to go with is, of course, Toy Shirt and Hartle.
Right.
Now, he also has our number 9, our striker, Klauss, right up there, right next to Leuven. Pretty good picks. I like it. Interestingly, the newcomer Betcher is on this list, which what he's shown, I think he would be at high risk for actually getting picked up. So I like that pick for sure. We have the row of wingers here. We have Celio and Vasilev, all really solid picks and probably pretty expected picks for most people. He put his defenders at the bottom here. No particular order, I'm sure, but we have Yarrow, we have Kess, and then we have Watts here. That is Steve's picks. I would be really curious what you all think about this. If you're on YouTube, feel free to comment. If you want to hit us up on Facebook or STL City Showdown on Blue Sky or Twitter, please feel free to disagree with all of Steve's picks. And if you happen to agree
with all of them.
Yeah. All of them. Well, okay.
I mean, I didn't omit any major players on our team. Speaking of that, let's go to AJ's. All right, so here's AJ's amazing list. That's like a book. So, of course, he's got Berkey, which, okay, whatever.
Of course.
Real original there. Giannis Horn and Leuven at the top. We've got
no particular order.
Right, no particular order. We've got Toy Shirt, Betcher, and Hartle. Looks like we've got, Celio and Indy. And then we have Nilsson, Mr. Glass there. It is Totlin, okay. So we have Totlin, Kessler, and Ostrak down at the bottom. So where we differ seems to be at that bottom row. So what were your thoughts with, you got Totland and Ostrak there?
Yeah, so our difference is Steve on his list, right? He has Klauss, Yarrow, and Watts. I left all three of those guys out. I know I'm going to start a riot here. And I put Horn, Tots, and Ostrak. So do we start? Let's save Klauss for a minute here. Let's talk about the other guys, because I think Klauss is the kind of versatile thing. That's like the really classic TV thing, right? They saved the really big thing for last. It's kind of like if you watch NFL, I guarantee you, they'll show a play of like a fumble that's being reviewed. They always show the clearest view like 2 minutes later.
Right.
Watch it. They never show the clear view because they want to like incite a riot, and then they finally show it. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to start a riot here and make you all wait to see what we think about Klauss and our big controversy here. I put Horn here, and I put Totland and Ostrak. The part of the reason here, and I know you had Yarrow here, is that I feel like we're pretty flush with center backs here. If you think about it, I'm just kind of looking at my little cheat sheet here. We have Nilsson, which obviously he's probably going to be hurt. There's that. We got Kessler. We got this Baumgartel, however you say his name. He's a center back too. That's coming.
Yeah, the new cat we got.
Yeah. We got Hebert, we got Yarrow, and we even have Winsel as well. There's like 6 people here. I mean, how many center backs do you start, Steve? I mean, now there's a possibility with this new guy coming in. A lot of people on Reddit and Twitter, you know, a lot of these wise guys here, I think that we possibly could go to 3 center back look. That's possible. Maybe that's why we're stacking hard on some of these center backs. But I think right now they're somewhat expendable. That's why I kind of left him off. Well, why did you put Yarrow on there and Watts?
So one of the reasons why I put Yarrow and Watts is Yarrow was one of our very key center backs, if you will, for last season. But now, you know, with the center backs we have being signed, you know, he might be a really good change of pace player towards the end of the game. Plus, we just signed him to a pretty long contract, and we know he's a San Diego guy. He played for their dream organization. He would be a guy, I have a feeling if they saw him, they would snatch him up. And I wonder if he's not worth more than $50,000 essentially. Like, what is his market value? Is it $50,000 or is it a lot more? And what do we want to give for him?
Can I share you a thought?
Sure, share away.
Is there a chance that St. Louis said, hey, San Diego, don't take any players from our team. We'll sign Yarrow to long-term contract because we know you probably would like him. And we'll trade you for something minimal or something like that if we lock him up and do something like that. Maybe Yarrow's even aware of something like that.
Right. You know, that could be something.
Is there a possibility of that?
Well, yeah, because as soon as the expansion draft is open, trades are open again until the super draft. They could do that up to the super draft. So that is a possibility. So, you know, but I think if they were to throw him out there as bait now, that would kind of look funky. So that's kind of why I put him on there. Keel Watts is one of our up-and-comers that I don't think the team is going to want to part with, especially if any of those kind of the defensive wing players get injured. He's a guy that's got to come in. He's a guy we have to have available to us. I'd be really into it's Giannis Horn. We kind of know that when he did play with us last season, he was kind of the invisible man. So like, why make sure we hold him as over the other guy, the other fella that you may want to talk about real quick, maybe.
So, you know, hearing like Lutzen, like different press conferences, podcasts that he's talked about, he seems pretty certain that Horn is going to be your starting like left back. So there's obviously value in Lutz we trust, right? I mean, there's some pretty high value that he's putting on him. So I'm like, okay, I got to trust the guy. Yeah. And who else are you going to put out there? Reed? Well, Reed is very risky defensively, but he does add a good element of offense. Now, if things go right, we might actually do pretty well on offense. We have Klauss, Betcher, Hartle, Toyshirt, Leuven when he's on the attacking side. provides a good offensive push. Totland can be useful as well. I feel like there's a lot of good moving parts here. Celio, I don't know if I said Celio, but Alm and Indy are obvious. So I feel like we're pretty strong there. Like, I'm feeling pretty good about our offensive side right now. Now, defensively, especially with the departure of Tim Parker, which I felt like really held things down, I'm not feeling it as much. I feel like we're going to be struggling. I feel like we're going to be giving up more goals than we should be. And I think wait until about a third way in the season, we're going to be like, oh, our defense sucks. I just feel like that's a really high possibility. So that's why I think having that defensive left back over somebody like Reed, who's more offensive, is what's going to be necessary. That's my thought.
All right. So one thing that we should pay attention to is the MLS is going to release the list of players that are eligible for the expansion draft tomorrow. So after we post this episode, it'd be cool to kind of come back and we can kind of do an update to say, hey guys, here's where we got it right. Here's the list that was actually released. So I have a feeling, though, Santa is not going to be on that list. So again, explain why you would give Santa away.
Okay, so let's do this. You want to do this? Let's do this, Steve.
You're releasing a DP. Why would they not pick him up immediately?
I'm not releasing him, but... So here's my thought is, man, this is tough, right? Like, I was thinking, okay, what would happen if a single player left a team? Would I be disappointed? Like Berkey, yes. Leuven, yes. Tartel Hoytcher, yes. Betcher, I think would kind of kill me. Celio, etc. But Klauss, I'm like, what? Tell me, in the past 2 seasons, has he really held his weight as a DP? In fact, if we lost him, by getting that DP spot back, we would actually be able to get someone who's producing at a DP level. I mean, can you tell me honestly, Steve, honestly, not lying to me, honestly, can you tell me honestly, that in your heart that Klauss is going to be a true DP player next year? I want him to be. I believe he could be, but I don't know that. And if he's not, we just wasted a DP spot on nothing. In fact, this might be a way to kind of clean up shop a little bit.
Right. Do you want to know his market value before we keep going? His current market value?
Heck yeah.
$3.5 million. So we would just hand him over to San Diego for $50,000. We got more out of AZ Jackson. We got more out of AZ Jackson.
I know. Who's going to buy, like, who's going to give... but who's... Okay, if you're City, right, and Klauss was on... City. Yeah, you're City. You're the entire City, right?
I am City.
So imagine New England has Klauss, right? And he's had the exact season he had with us.
Right. He's running around.
Would you pay $3.5 million for that player? No.
Well, probably not, but I would probably pay more than $50,000.
Yeah, but it's not that it's not just that. It's that we're buying back the spot. So not only do you get $50,000 back, but you also get a free DP spot. Because right now we're maxed out on DPs. Okay. It's Klauss, Leuven, Hoytcher, and Hartl. That's it.
Now, though, I would agree with you if I knew when his contract expires. When does Klauss's contract expire, and would it make sense? But what? Okay,
I think it's 2 years.
Klauss was on, so he's still got 2 years left on the contract. So when Klauss was here and he was kind of like our main guy our first year, scored 10 goals. He was an amazing guy. What if he goes to San Diego and they make him the centerpiece, and he goes off, and they wind up having the same season we had their first year, and Klauss was on that team to do so?
You know what? But that's the thing in sports, right? I mean, like, look at Nelson. We released Nelson. He becomes a starter and then wins the MLS Cup, right? Like, sometimes that happens. It goes both ways. Sometimes a player gets released and then we pick him up, our team does, and they turn out to be a star. right? Nobody thought Batcher was going to be as good as he is. Hopefully he continues on this, but sometimes you get lucky. And sometimes you take out the trash and it just is not so good. I'm not saying Klauss is trash, of course. Like, I think he's a great player. I think he's got a lot of skill. I just don't have that confidence in him. I just don't.
I think the good news for both of us is neither of us were foolish enough to put Thor on our reserve list. That's
oh man.
At least we can agree that that's not something that should ever happen. So I think that our lists are both pretty good. I think we're going to see that we are going to see a lot of these names clearly on the list that City puts out, which is fine. I'll be interested. So all the other players are going to be on that expansion draft availability list, and I can't wait to see that list tomorrow. This is a good conversation. This is a good list we have here, and I would love to hear what some of the fans and some of the detractors of City have to say about our list. That'll be really interesting to see who they agree with, and maybe there was a glaring person that either of us left off, and we're just not seeing it.
Right.
Like Hebert.
And,
you gotta
guys,
keep that Hebert.
I mean, I do like him. I wouldn't put him on the list, but I think he's not bad for a center back. But, the thing is like, just to kind of say one thing about Klauss too, is like, you and I have defended Klauss basically since like the beginning. And he's probably still one of our favorite players overall. His personality is amazing, him and Indy, but I just want to kind of see, I do kind of want to see what other people think. I know it's a little controversial. I was actually telling Steve before we started this episode, I was like, man, I'm going through my list here and I'm like, I'm kind of on the borderline of not to include Klauss or not. And if I did include him, it was like he was my 12th person on the list in my mind anyways. Now, do I actually think City is going to put a DP not on the list? I think if they didn't, they would be so heavily criticized that they'd probably burn down the place just because it's a DP. You know what I mean? But if we're thinking this as like, like actually like logically thinking it out, I think that's what I'm kind of thinking. I don't know. It'll be fun. I mean, who knows? Maybe if we open up a DP slot, maybe Messi will come here after another year. We can save that slot for him. What do you think?
Yeah, put him out there in a wheelchair. That'd be great.
Oh man.
Yeah, but we got to bring all his elderly friends with him, and I don't know. It's gonna be great to see next year because I think this year was kind of like their year, and they didn't make it. So there's a new darling in town. Yeah,
the nursing home SC.
Yep.
All right, Steve, before we go, any last thoughts other than crazy controversy that we just started? Oops.
Nope. I think that other than the fact that we can't leave a David off the list, I think it's been a great, I think this was great. I can't wait to see what people have to say about this. Oh, and I am looking right now, and like every Major League Soccer team, some outlet from that team's area is putting together their own expansion list protection list. So like it'll be interesting to see when these lists come out tomorrow. It'll be really dope.
Yeah. So definitely look for the Twitter, Blue Sky, and Facebook because we'll start to post this stuff on those social media so you guys can give your feedback, kind of like what we had a little bit with our tier list. So Steve, actually, you want to run through our socials real quick just so everybody knows and take us out?
Right. So you can find us all on SCL City Showdown. We're very active on X and on Blue Sky. Very, very active. We've been trying to follow as many people as we can. You can see us on Facebook as May Zipper. We're on there. We're on there as our personalities. We have a website. It is sclcityshowdown.weebly.com. You can find our ref series on there. We have some different things on there. You'll be able to find links to the shows. So really, we're out there. We're available. If you ever want to come on and record an episode with us or just a part of an episode, let us know. We had an awesome guest, Durkin Pop, on here a couple of weeks ago, and we would love to be able to communicate because AJ and I, this is just two dudes talking about something we really love. So we want to have some other cats in here. So let us know if you ever want to be a part of it. It'll be dope.
Yeah, and definitely balance this out because otherwise we make stupid lists without Klauss on it.
Yeah, or we'll add players that we don't need to, like I did, I'm sure. So
Yeah. All right.
okay. Well, unprotected.